Come on, let me hear it till she gets here.
It was 1:45 on a Saturday afternoon this past November. My husband and I were sitting in our seats in the State Theater. We were waiting for the start of Purple Rain, the theater production based on the life and music of Prince. And while we were waiting, I stood up, turned around, and took a survey of the soon-to-be 2,000 of my fellow theater goers. I had a theory about this matinee, that a chance to do something fun that did not require driving at night was going to be like catnip to my fellow boomers. And I think I was right. And everywhere that I looked was like an orthopedic surgeon's dream. And I count my own 2 titanium hips in that assessment. At 2 o'clock, the theater went dark, and a surge of electricity went through it. And then the voice of Prince surrounded us in the dark. Dearly beloved, we are here today to get through this thing called life, and we didn't need to wait for instructions. We went crazy and pushed right on through to nuts. And for the next 3 hours, I was transported to a place I hadn't expected. Nostalgia was part of it, but it became something more. And at times I felt like my heart was so full it was going to burst out of my chest. And there was no time to think about why these feelings were so strong. And as the 3-hour production started to wind down, we rose as one and roared our approval and appreciation to a young cast that beamed back at us. And then it was over, and we filed out into the waning light of a winter afternoon. Now, my husband and I, we didn't talk on the drive home. It was like we were under a spell. And I thought about how close we had come to not going. The tickets were expensive. The reviews were mixed. And when I did buy the tickets, I was sent down this weird rabbit hole of having to prove who I was time and again. I mean, I think I was vetted much more thoroughly than, let's say, Pete Hegseth ever has been. But I was glad I persisted. When we got home, we sat on the couch with the dog between us. And she was the happy recipient of some double petting. And after a bit, my husband broke the silence. And he said that something had really jarred loose in him that day and that afternoon, and he didn't know what or why. And I said I had the same experience. And I think that it has something to do with what we had been hearing lately, of how it felt like just a few years after saying goodbye to the last of our 4 parents, we couldn't go more than a month or 2 without hearing about someone that we loved starting to fade. And we had to ask ourselves, were we now in that portion of our life where the losses are going to start to come in on a regular schedule, almost if on a schedule like train after train pulling into a station? And we were quiet after that. More petting, more thinking, more petting. And then we knew what we needed to do. And my husband and I made a pact that when it comes to the people that we love, we were going to take a page from Prince. We were going to revel in them, celebrate them, surround ourselves with them. When we could, party with them. When it comes to love, we were going to go crazy. A few hours later, lying in bed, I thought about Prince, how there was no one else in this universe that could have given us a day like he gave us, where for a few hours we felt young again. And his mortality opened our hearts to talking about that part of this thing we call life. All of that, and we were in bed by 10, a bonus for this boomer. It had been quite the day, and now that day was a wrap. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Annie.